Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Okay, so in the last episode, we wanted to fix this issue here. The first name is required. As you can see, this is not very user-friendly information here, since this is taken from the input name. And sometimes you may want to name this differently so the user can see a much cleaner thing. Okay, so let's make provision for that inside the validator. So I'm going to open the validator class. Excuse me there. Okay, so what I want to do is let me go to the sign up controller here. Now let me put these like this so that we can see more clearly what's going on here. So these are our rules. Okay, so no problem here. These are the rules. Now what I want to be able to do is make a name for this one first of all. So instead of just having an array that has what's this, the rules, will have two arrays. So inside this array, I'm going to have an item named name like this. And then in here, I can put something like first name. This is the user-friendly version. And then within that, I can have another item called rules. Rules like this. And then this one will be the one that is the array for the rules. Just like this. Okay, so we have two items in this array. So we have an array, and then inside that array we have two items in there, which is let me move these guys inward a little bit so that it's much clearer what's going on here. So within this array we have a string with a key of name and rules and an array here. Now, this is not enough. We may want a custom, for example, like we want a custom, instead of saying first name is required, maybe I want to say, please add a first name, right? Instead of that. So I could put this inside an array as well, like this. Now, I don't want custom messages for the rest, so I just want a custom message for this first item here. So inside here I will add an array, and let's do this. We're gonna say this one is the rule, and then we can have an error message as the second parameter here. Error message like so, and then say instead of first name is required, we're gonna say please add a first name, something like this. So within this we have an array. So this whole part here is an array of two items. So I could do this so that it's more clear what is going on, like so. All right, so there it is. So I want our system to be able to recognize this, right? But at the same time, I don't want it to fail if I just write the items like this, right? So I want these options. Maybe I don't want something complex. I just want something maybe like email and give me what we already have, right? Should also work, but also this should work. And as you can see with the rules, there's two types of rules. One is an array and the others are just strings like this. If I don't want anything special, I don't want to add an error message, for example, that's custom to these, but certain times I want to do that. So let's see how we can have our system be this liberal that it can be very forgiving with what options you add here. All right, so let's go to the validated class. This one is inside app, classes, core, and then validator. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is check. So let's see what's happening here. This is in the validate place, right? When we get rows here, as we loop, we are looping through the first level of the array. So this first level here, where we get an array. So regardless whether it's this or it's that, we are getting an array as a row, right? So this array and that array. So in the case for this one, we should check to see if there's an item with a key named name. If it's there, then we know it's this version. If it's not, then we know we just have rows in there. Okay, so if name exists, then probably rows exists as well. So let's check that out. So what we're going to do is rows here. All right. So remember that now we need an error message, which is actually this is in the second level. So let's not worry about that for now. Let's just name this as the input name. So what I'm going to do is have a variable called input name, and I'm going to set it to an empty string because we don't have it yet. And then we check, right? If not empty, or if is set, right? If is set, the rows name like that. So the name is the user-friendly name. If that is set, then let's do something. Okay, so if that is set, then input name is going to be equal to whatever the rows name is. So let me grab that and let me put it here. All right. Since it's set, it should exist. And then it means our actual rows are inside the row, this one here. Okay, so let's do rows is equal to rows, like that. All right, gang. So now this replaces everything the way it was in the beginning. Even when we have this version, we still get our rows, but now we have an input name as part of it, right? So that shouldn't be a problem. And let's see. Now we need to replace this input name somehow in our methods. Now we're going to be adding an input name and an error message as well. So it seems we're adding more items here, and it becomes a mess if at some point you keep adding params to a method. So instead, what we're going to do is add one called meta, which will be an array instead of just some text. We don't even need to name it there. I can just put an array like that. And let me do this, right? So this one will have, let's say, input name. And we're going to set that to whatever the input name will be at that time. So comma. And then the second one will be the error message. Now, the reason I'm doing this is so that if for some reason you have to add some other information, you can just add it to this array instead of adding params one after another over time. That may make it look like a mess. Okay, so that part is good. Now, if we send the input name through here, it means we have to expect an extra param here. So I'm going to select all these params down here. I'm pressing Ctrl D once I select the first one, and then I can select all of them. So then I can do right arrow key, comma, and then expect an array. And this is where I can name it meta, like that, just for metadata, which is something like extra data. So in this meta thingy, we're going to have the input name and the error message if the error message exists. So instead of putting this error message, we will put one from the meta version if it exists. Okay. So what I'm going to do is select all of this so that way I can replace the error message or the input field. Now in this case, I'm just replacing the input field. We don't have an error message yet, so let's deal with that. So where this says UC first input field, maybe I should set that as the default value. So I'm going to say, wait a second, a default value. I'm going to put that there. So yeah, that would work because field is already there. So input name is input name. Okay. Now, if this, if this one exists, then we set input name to that. Okay, so that's good. So this means I can simply replace all of this with input name. So let me grab all of that. And so what I'm going to do is replace that with meta input name, like that. Okay, great. So at least that's replaceable. Let's see if that actually worked with our rules here. And then we're going to get a few errors, I'm sure, but let's try it out. Especially with first name, it should change that. So let me refresh. Okay, so we have a problem. So explode argument to string must be of type string. Array was given. Okay, so at some point we got an array on line 44. So it's complaining about that. Let's go to line 44. There we go. So at this point where we're exploding the rule, we got an array instead of a string. So it's this part where we're looking for a full colon. So if I come back here to see that, it means it's this text that we're trying to explode. But the problem is, in this situation, we have an array and it's the first item, so we can't really do that. So in this case, we need to check if what we get is a string or if it's an array, because sometimes it's a string, sometimes it's an array. So I'm going to come here. This is where row is. Now, row represents one of these rows, which is either a string or an array. So at this point, I'm going to say if we can just say is array row. So if it's an array, then we do some other thing, right? And this is the part where we can either have an error message or just no error message at all. So here I'm going to set error message to an empty string like that. And yeah, that way we get to send it there as a default value. But then if there is an error message, then I should set it here. Now that error message is going to be inside row, which will be an array in this case. And it should have something called error message like that. Now, if that does not exist, because it's possible somebody can forget to put that, let's put empty quotes like that. But then at the same time, we need to set row to be equal to the current row rows like that. So this item rows is the one here. Oh, it's actually a single row. Okay, so no problem. Let's just do row like that. Now, excuse me here. So that will be the row. Now, in case for some reason, this should always exist, because if it's an array, then at least it contains that, right? But if it doesn't, because row is supposed to be a string, we can set that to an empty string like that. Okay, guys, let's check it out. Let's see if this will do something. Let me refresh. Okay, so look at that. We've successfully managed to change the input name. So this one is first name. So just to be sure that we are changing this, I can put my at the beginning like that, and you will see that it's gonna change that. Oh my goodness, I think I'm developing a flu of some sort. Okay, so my first name, there it is. The rest of these are using what's already there, which is good. This makes the whole system very forgiving, or liberal, as they say. Okay, so that is good, but what about if I want a custom error message? So I want that for my first name, it must be, so this is all using those ones. But what I want is to use this custom error message, which is like, please add a first name, right? For this particular row, which is required. So instead of saying my first name is required, we should get the other error message. So all we have to do here is make it search for the new error message or replace the error message. So let's come back here. So this is the part where the error messages are created. So I want to change this, put an if statement here to say, if there is an error message, then let's use that instead. So I'm going to grab this and press Ctrl D to select all of them because I want to edit all of them at once, batch editing. So I'm going to press the left arrow key, Ctrl left. So here I want to check if empty, right? So if the error message inside meta is empty, so I'm going to say meta. Now empty also checks if it exists, right? If it doesn't exist, it qualifies as emptiness. So let's say error message like that. So if that error message is empty, then let me move to the end, put a question mark, and this is fine. So if it's empty, it's going to show us this error message that's currently here. But then I'm going to press the end key to go to the end of the line, and then move one step to move out of the semicolon and put a full colon here. Because now this means if the error message is not empty, then we have to use it here. So I'm going to type meta and then error message like so. All right, so what we've done here is essentially a one-line if statement. So we're saying if this error message is empty, then just we're going to run with the default. But if it's not, we're going to run with the error message. Okay, so let me get back here and let's refresh this. Let's see if we get a different error message just at the beginning. And yes, we do. So please add first name. And then my first name, these continue as normal. So I still want, excuse me, I still want to be this to be more forgiving than it already is. So right now it's very forgiving because we can either write something like this or then put another error message. Now on this one where we say no space, for example, let's see here. Okay, so let's see another situation like where there is last name. What if I just want to do this? Let's say I put this inside an array and maybe I forget to write name and then rows, right? Instead of doing this, I just want to put the name at the beginning and then another array of rows down here, right? I want to be able to do that as well. Maybe I forget to write row and error message. I want that also to be workable. So for example, let's start with, let me undo this, which I had done here. Let's say for minimum of 3, right? On this one, I want to make it an array like that. But then let me put a comma, and instead of saying error message, I just want to say item, or just text must be at least 3 chars long. So I want this as well to be possible, as well as this. So just in case I'm lazy that day, I don't want to write ru and then error message. I want this to work as well. So in this case, it should check if this is an array, but then it doesn't have this ru thingy. It should just consider the first item as the ru and the second item as the error. So let's go back to the validator and let's give it that option. So this one is inside the rows themselves. So at this point, there's an error message that we're expecting. But then if this error message does not exist, let's just grab the second item. So I'm going to put brackets here to evaluate that first. So I'm going to say ru like this. And then we grab the second item, which is item number 1. Now it's possible this item may not exist. So let's put those question marks and empty string like that. All right, so that makes it more liberal. The same thing here with the ru. Now, in case ru does not exist, let's just grab the very first item. So here I'm just going to say ru 0. Okay, so ru 0. If that does not exist, let's put empty string like that. So already that should make it use this version of things as well. So let's try that. With minimum 3 characters, it should have this error. Text must be at least 3 chars long. So let's see if this error message will change as well. So let me refresh. And there we go. So text must be at least 3 characters long. And it recognizes this type and this type, so which is good. What more can we do? So let's do a much trickier one here. With this one here, the last name, for example, I want to still be able to do this, which I have done here, but without specifying which one is the name and which one is the rows. I want it to figure it out by itself by just saying, okay, the first one should be the name and the last one should be the rows. So if right now I just do this, I put a comma and then I just say the name for this one will be, let's change it to my last name, or let's change it to surname so that it's very obvious. So if I do it this way, you see the first item is a string to name the name of this thing, and then the second item are the rows, but we don't have any error messages at all in there. Let's see if it will figure this out with the code we have right now. So I'm going to refresh the page and let's look at the last name here. So as you can see, things went off the rails here because this is the error message is giving us, which is min3, and that doesn't work. Now the reason it's doing this and not showing any error is because we asked it to say if this so what it's doing is it's considering all of this as rows, like this is row number 1 because this version is similar to this one, right? It's just saying, okay, maybe this is a row, it doesn't exist, and then it starts looping through these as well. It sees this as a row, just like we would have this, and then considers the second item as an error message, just like we are doing here. So it's thinking this is this version, right? But it isn't. So let's figure this out. So I'm going to go to validator here. At this point, what I'm going to do is change my if statement. Now, if is set rew's name, then we are doing this version, right? So that's what I want here, to go into the array mode. But the problem is every single time, even with this version, this is an array. This version, that's an array. Even this version, this is an array. So it can't tell the difference. It will always just use, it will skip over this one. So what I'm going to do is let me put an OR statement to put a second situation in which it should go into array mode. So I'm going to say if count, for example, the rows is equal to 2. Okay, so what I'm saying is that if this item here has only 2 items inside, so this first item and the second item, right? So it should consider it this version. But the problem is I could just be using this version with 2 rows here. So let's add some more if statements. So we're going to say if the first one is a string and the second item is an array, then we're definitely sure this is what's going on. So we're going to put an AND statement here and say if, how do we do this? If rows, right? If rows 0 is string, so let's do if is string, and then what else? And is array. So the third item should be an array, not the third item, the second item, if rows 1. So it needs to have 2 items. The first one needs to be a string and the second one needs to be an array. Now let me just make sure I have enough brackets here at the end. So let's try this out. Now how do we know if it works? If it works, then on last name we're going to have surname as the name of this input, and then the errors will go as planned instead of having this right now. So let me refresh that and let's see. Okay, so we still get some errors here. It's going to say undefined array key name on line 35. Let's check that out. Line 35, where art thou? Okay, so there it is, right? So we need to make provision here for those situations, because in our case, we don't have this rows name and this rows. So what I'm going to do is, if this does not exist, I'm just going to say get the first thing, right? So I'll put that inside brackets so I can put another if statement in there. So I'm going to say rows 0, like that, the very first item. But if that item as well does not exist, since this is text we're expecting, let's just do that. Put an empty string. And then if rows 2 does not exist, let's do the same thing. Let's just say grab the second item, which is 1. But if it does not exist, because we're expecting this to be an array, let's set it to an empty array. Okay guys, so let me refresh this. Moment of truth, and as you can see, even this one has worked. So instead of last name, we get surname is required. Surname must be 3, and so on. So that's working. Let's see if we can add a custom message down here as well. Let's go to the sign up page. So I want to make, so you can make the rules as complex as you want or as simple as you want. So let's see here first. So that works like that, and required. So even with this is required, right? So inside required, I can put an array like this, and then the first thing is a row, the second one is the error message. So I can say required, and then say, I don't know what to say here. This name is required. All right, so there we go. So I want this to be able, I want it to be able to recognize this short version of everything, right? There are no key value pairs here. It's just the surname, and then there's a row and its error message. So let's see here. If I'm gonna get this name is required here instead, so let me refresh, and let's see. Okay, so this name is required. So this has become as liberal as possible, right? At this point, for example, password here is required, but it's matching this. But at the same time, if it doesn't match, or let's see, maybe it doesn't match, I want to see a different error here. Let me just do that and say comma, and say make sure the passwords match, something like that. So that's my error message there. So let me come back here and press that button, refresh the page, and then I'll type some gibberish here so that both these do not match. Let me just make sure I have password verify down here. Where is this? This password confirm, but confirm password. But let me change that to password underscore verify. Is that what I named it? Yes. Okay. So password verify. Let me refresh the page. Let me type something in the first password and sign up. So as you can see now, required. Oh, wait. Required should match password verify. Okay, that's not working at all. Okay, so what we're going to do, where is required here? That's wrong what it's doing. Okay, so things here seem to be okay, but things have gone off the rails over here. So let me check it out. What's going on? So it's saying required, that becomes the name, and then oh, I see. Okay, so this is not what we said. These are supposed to be like the rules only, but it's matching the other situation, so not cool at all. So in this situation, I should specify what I'm doing here, because unfortunately this has matched this version, even though I'm trying to do something different, right? These are only the rules and not the name. So in this case, I should specify that these are the rules. So what I'm going to do is, let me give it an explicit name here, even though we already have that name. I'm going to name it password, capital P. All right. And then a comma. And then I put these guys in an array. Let me go to the end and close that array. So this is the only way it's going to work, because then it will know this is the name of the thingy, the input, and then the rules are over here. But then within those rules, we have one rule and two rule like that. Okay, so let me refresh. Let's see if that works. Okay, so there it is. Make sure the passwords match. Passwords there. Okay, so that's the bottom line here. Our verification or validator works, and it works with a variety of options, which makes it easier for you to set your rules in a relaxed manner. Alright guys, so in the next video, let's create some tables and actually save some actual data. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video.